Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, expanding naval horizons. Several Gulf navies are buying new ships and bases, but will need to find the crews and strategies to make good use of them. The navies of the Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC, have traditionally been small and focused mainly on coastal defense. But some of them have begun to develop an expeditionary maritime capability, with implications in the region and beyond. They have been spurred on by a general sense of an increased maritime security threat around the region, including from Iran, and, in part, by the requirements of the conflict in Yemen. United Arab Emirates. Of the 6 GCC nations, the United Arab Emirates has the largest and most significant sea lift capability. Since the beginning of the Saudi-led intervention in the Yemen conflict in 2015, the UAE has been supplying its own forces there by sea, as well as ferrying in those of other nations. Much of this sea lift capability is based in the port of Asab in Eritrea, where the UAE Navy currently maintains a typical deployment of at least 2 corvettes and 8 amphibious vessels. A new Emirati naval base is being constructed 11 kilometers to the northwest of Asab, next to the city's international airport, part of which is also used by the Emirati armed forces. The UAE's military footprint will be further expanded by the construction of a new naval base at Berbera in Somaliland, a breakaway region seeking independence from the central Somali government in Mogadishu. Whilst the UAE certainly has the funds to acquire relatively high-end equipment, the Navy is constrained by its size. Numbering just a few thousand sailors, the UAE Navy would have difficulty finding crews for new frigates, fleet replenishment vessels and large amphibious platforms, and to sustain operations beyond the Horn of Africa. Qatar. The Qatari Navy's largest vessels are Barzan-class missile craft, built by the British firm Vosper Thornycroft in the 1990s. The 2016 agreement with Italian shipyard Fincantieri for the acquisition of 4 corvettes, 2 offshore patrol vessels, OPVs, and a landing platform dock, LPD, is therefore significant. Details of the vessel designs released subsequently have revealed that the announcement actually understated the scale of Qatar's ambition. Upon closer inspection, the corvettes, OPVs, and LPD have turned out to be frigates, corvettes and a landing helicopter dock, LHD. Since 2013, Qatar has been on a spending spree to acquire high-end Western equipment on a significant scale. As with the UAE, where this small peninsula nation of 2 million people will find the crews to operate these vessels, or, for example, its shopping list of 96 new fighter aircraft over the next decade is not clear. If Qatar is able to find a way to do so, most likely by hiring foreign nationals, by 2025 it will have the beginnings of a modest expeditionary capability centered on the new LHD and 12 NH-90 naval helicopters also being acquired from Italy. Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia's potential blue water fleet is the largest in the GCC, with 7 frigates and a pair of replenishment vessels. However, 4 of those frigates and both supply ships were built in the early 1980s and are now nearing the end of their service lives. 2 contracts signed in 2018 for US and Spanish frigates will increase the overall size of the fleet, but these are not currently accompanied by orders for logistics ships that would allow them to operate further afield or for any new amphibious capability. Unlike the UAE, Saudi Arabia has no experience in naval shipbuilding and would struggle to fill this gap domestically without significant outside support. Regional capability development. A number of other countries have naval and air bases or facilities in or near the Horn of Africa. Djibouti is the most popular location, where the European Union, for example, has long had facilities to help run the Operation Atlanta counter-piracy mission that has been underway since 2008. Even more states have maritime interests in the region. The increase in the size and capability of several of the GCC navies over the next decade could allow the GCC countries to take on a larger share of maritime security responsibilities in the future, including participating in multinational missions and patrolling sea lines of communication. There may also be an onus on outside navies to do more to help GCC navies enhance their capacity. However, there could also be other consequences. The UAE's naval base in Somaliland, and its offer to train local security forces, is already causing tension with the government in Mogadishu. Relations could deteriorate further if Somalia feels it needs to directly assert its sovereignty over Somaliland. Whilst there is going to be an increase in GCC surface combatant capability over the next decade, the largest injection of amphibious expeditionary capability in the Middle East in recent years has come from outside the GCC, through close ally Egypt. Cairo bought 2 Mistral-class LHDs, originally intended for Russia, from France in 2015. Despite spending over $1 billion on these ships, it is still not clear how Egypt intends to use them. Likewise, Qatar, Saudi Arabia and the UAE are spending billions of dollars on new naval platforms capable of providing a blue water presence. However, unless many more billions are spent on sustainment, training, operations, and personnel, and the ships fitted into a wider strategy, the GCC will remain a largely littoral force with very expensive patrol ships. Naval Group lands deal with UAE for new warships. The United Arab Emirates has selected the Gauind corvette from Naval Group in a planned order for 2 warships and an option for 2 more, in a bid to boost the Gulf states' naval capability, the UAE and France announced. The Naval Group now launches contract negotiations for the vessels, which will seek to meet UAE requirements, the company said in a statement. As part of its development strategy for the naval forces of the UAE, the acquisition of 2 multi-mission Gauind combat-type corvettes was confirmed by the UAE, the 2 nations said November 9 on a visit to UAE by French President Emmanuel Macron. The ships will be built by the French high-tech company, Naval Group in partnership with Abu Dhabi Shipbuilding Company, ADSB, said the joint statement, adding there is an option for 2 more vessels. The planned procurement includes the Thales Tacticos combat management system, which was picked over the Naval Group SETIs, a defense executive said. The Raytheon Evolved Sea Sparrow missile and MBDA Exocet will likely arm the Gauind ships as those weapons are fitted on the UAE Navy's 6-strong fleet of Bainana corvettes, the QA website reported. A common inventory, logistics, and training would be the advantages of such a selection. French shipyard CMN designed the Bainana, which also ships the Raytheon rolling airframe missile, a 76mm gun and 2 27mm guns. We are proud the United Arab Emirates have selected the design of the Naval Group's Gauind corvettes, Naval Group Chairman Hervé Guillot said in a statement. With our UAE partner ADSB, we will now pursue discussions with the armed forces to allow the finalization of the acquisition contract. Naval Group competed with CMN, Dutch firm Damen and Italian shipyard Fincantieri, La Tribune reported. Naval Group has sold 4 Gauind vessels in a €1 billion, US $1.17 billion, deal to Egypt, with options for 2 more, and 6 Gauind to Malaysia. Macron went to the UAE for the November 8 official opening of the Abu Dhabi Louvre Museum, a prestige project which took 10 years to build and which permanently houses 600 artworks and 300 on loan from France. Qatar's foreign minister seals $6 billion warship deal with Italy. Qatar has concluded an almost $6 billion deal with Italy for 7 warships, the Qatar foreign minister said on Wednesday, part of a military cooperation agreement between the 2 countries. The deal marks a significant modernization and increase in Qatar's naval capabilities. It will go some way towards closing the capability gap between the isolated Gulf nation and other regional powers, including Iran and Saudi Arabia. Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani made the announcement at a news conference with his Italian counterpart Angelino Alfano in Doha after talks about efforts to end a rift between Qatar and 4 Arab states. I am pleased to announce the conclusion of a deal between the Qatari Emiri Naval Forces to buy 7 naval units from Italy in the context of the joint military cooperation between the 2 countries, Sheikh Mohammed said. He said the deal was estimated at $5.9 billion but gave no further details and did not identify the companies involved. It is understood the announcement relates to a deal first outlined last year by Italy's state-controlled shipbuilder Fincantieri. At the time, Fincantieri said it would supply the Gulf Arab state with 4 3,000-ton corvettes, two 700-ton offshore patrol vessels and an amphibious landing platform dock, along with support services in Qatar for 15 years after delivery. Currently Qatar's navy is made up of 20-year-old patrol vessels, and unlike regional powers Iran and Saudi Arabia, it lacks full-sized modern warships. All the ships will be built in Italian shipyards, with construction starting in 2018, it said. Italian defense company Leonardo will supply electronics and weapons systems for the ships and receive about a third of the value of the deal, a company official said at the time. Qatar is embroiled in a dispute with Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, the UAE, and Egypt, which accuse it of supporting Islamists and regional foe Iran, charges Doha denies. The countries cut air, sea, and land links with Qatar, leaving the country isolated amid its former Gulf allies. The 7-vessel deal comes as Italy and Qatar continued to move towards closer military ties. In March, the heads of Qatar and Italy's navies signed a deal for the training of Qatari sailors ahead of the delivery of the warships. The training deal covers the enrollment of Qataris at Italian Navy training centers, the embarkation of Qatari officers on Italian warships, and the dispatch of an Italian naval liaison officer to the Qatar naval headquarters in Doha. The following month, the Italian frigate Carabinier visited Doha in a sign of ongoing naval cooperation between the two countries. Even with the order of the ships, Qatar's naval forces will still be smaller than the naval forces of Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Bahrain. Qatar's fleet, though, will be more modern and boast a new amphibious land capability. Saudi Arabia's Zamal shipyards lays keel of first locally built Shi-32 interceptor. In April 2018, Saudi company Zamal Offshore Services concluded an agreement worth $480 million with French shipyard CMN for the construction of 39 Shi-32 interceptors for the Saudi naval forces. According to the agreement, 21 vessels are set to be built by CMN in Cherbourg, France, and the remaining 18 are to be assembled at the facilities of Zamal Offshore Services in Saudi Arabia. CMN delivered the first 2 Shi-32 interceptors for the Royal Saudi Navy. The delivery ceremony took place July 24, 2019 at the shipyard in Cherbourg, Normandy. In addition, CMN is set to deliver 3 combatant FS-56 fast attack craft, originally ordered on behalf of Lebanon. Zamal Shipyard's press release issued September 22. A key milestone in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, KSA, sovereign shipbuilding program for the Royal Saudi Navy Forces, RSNF, was successfully achieved in the presence of Zamal board members. One of our Dammam shipyards successfully installed the first keel plate for the first of class, FOC, naval vessels being built in Kingdom. Another momentous occasion for sovereign naval shipbuilding capability. Following the board meeting, members inspected the Dammam shipyard facilities and workshops that have over the past few months been especially mobilized for naval shipbuilding. The board also spent time talking to many of the growing team working on this prestigious program for RSNF. In addition to our naval shipbuilding pedigree, Zamal is currently building the 74th commercial vessel whilst undertaking significant ship and rig repairs, upgrades, and conversions. Another key milestone achieved this week as our MTU/ZF agency business goes from strength to strength. The first MTU engines coupled with ZF gearboxes arrived in one of our Dammam shipyards for the first naval vessel to be built in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, KSA, for the Royal Saudi Naval Forces, RSNF. As part of building a sovereign naval shipbuilding capability in KSA, it was another key milestone for Zamal MTU. In addition, our MTU/ZF agency business has recently invested in workshop special tools, parts, and equipment worth some 12 million SAR, with further exciting capability investments and strategic roadshows planned in partnership with MTU Friedrichshafen, Germany. Accordingly, members of Zamal executive spent 2 days with senior MTU representatives in Germany working through and agreeing on actions for the next stages of growth for our sole MTU partnership across KSA. In doing so, the team witnessed MTU engines and ZF gearboxes in production for the RSNF naval shipbuilding program that will eventually be delivered to one of our Dammam shipyards for installation into the RSNF vessels being built. Lockheed Martin to build Corvette-sized MMSC surface warship for Saudi Arabia. Naval experts at Lockheed Martin Corp will start building 4 Corvette-sized small surface warships for the government of Saudi Arabia, under terms of a $451 million order last month. Naval experts at Lockheed Martin Corp will start building 4 Corvette-sized small surface warships for the government of Saudi Arabia, under terms of a $451 million order last month. Officials of the U.S. Naval Sea Systems Command in Washington are asking Lockheed Martin Corp to buy long lead materials and continue designing the multi-mission surface combatant, MMSC, for Saudi Arabia. The MMSC is a variant of the Lockheed Martin Freedom-class littoral combat ship, LCS, that can be configured with a variety of sensors and weapons that help enable interoperability among U.S. naval forces and those of allied navies during joint operations. Long lead materials are difficult and time-consuming to obtain, and are funded early in the ship design process to keep overall production on schedule. The MMSC will have an open architecture design with a semi-planing monohull made of steel and an aluminum superstructure, and feature the Lockheed Martin Combat's 21 Combat Management System, CMS, to integrate the ship's sensors, communications, and armament. Sensors will include a TRS-4D surveillance and target acquisition radar, a modern fire control radar, a multifunction phased array radar, an identification friend or foe, IFF, system, towed hull-mounted and dipping sonars, and a compact low-frequency active and passive variable depth sonar. Saudi signs deal for 5 Spanish warships. Saudi Arabia's state-owned defense company has forged a deal with Spanish shipbuilder Navantia for a joint venture to build 5 warships, state media said Thursday. The agreement with Saudi Arabian Military Industries, SAMI, for the design and construction of 5 Avant 2200 Corvettes warships will start this autumn, with the last unit to be delivered by 2022, the official Saudi press agency reported. The agreement appears part of a framework agreed in April during Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's visit to Spain for Navantia to provide warships to the Gulf state for around €2 billion, $2.3 billion. SAMI says it aims to become a major player in the global defense industry and localize more than half of the kingdom's military spending by 2030. The agreement announced on Thursday will generate up to 6,000 jobs for 5 years, including 1,100 direct jobs, SPA reported. Under Prince Mohammed's Vision 2030, a package of economic and social reforms aimed at reducing dependence on oil exports, Riyadh plans to spend €32 billion in transportation infrastructure in the next decade. Spanish firms have already won 2 major infrastructure contracts in Saudi Arabia in recent years. A Spanish consortium, Al Shula, is building a high-speed railway across the desert to link the holy cities of Mecca and Medina, while Spanish construction group FCC leads one of 3 consortia building a rapid transit system in the Saudi capital. Saudi Arabia signs warship construction deal with France's naval group. Saudi Arabia signed a preliminary agreement on Sunday with France's naval group to build warships in the kingdom, as part of its efforts to develop domestic manufacturing capabilities. Saudi Arabian Military Industries, SAMI, the kingdom's state defense company, made the announcement at the IDEX military exhibition in Abu Dhabi, a showpiece event for Saudi Arabia's close ally the United Arab Emirates. Saudi Arabia, among the top 5 defense spenders in the world, has been fighting a costly war in Yemen since 2015 in support of the internationally recognized government against the armed Houthi movement. The latest agreement includes building warships, frigates, corvettes, and related items in Saudi Arabia through a majority SAMI-owned joint venture with the French firm, SAMI chief executive Andreas Schwer told reporters. Through design, construction, and maintenance activities, the joint venture will contribute significantly to further enhance the capabilities and readiness of the Royal Saudi Naval Forces, he said. Saudi Arabia set up SAMI in 2017 to develop manufacturing capabilities with the aim of producing half of the country's required military equipment domestically by 2030. The localization of Saudi Arabia's military needs is part of efforts led by de facto ruler Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to diversify away from an oil-based economy. Neighbor UAE has heavily invested in developing its own manufacturing capabilities and has military and civilian contracts with several foreign companies. SAMI signed an agreement with Abu Dhabi state fund Mubadala on Saturday to co-invest in manufacturing, maintenance, and engineering. Military deals with Saudi Arabia have come under renewed scrutiny since the October killing of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Germany halted arms exports to Saudi Arabia over what it said was the uncertainty surrounding the murder. Paramount Group chairman Ivor Ichikowicz told Reuters that had created a huge opportunity for those outside of Europe such as his South African defense firm. I think some of them may be quite short-sighted, but quite honestly that is their problem and we are quite happy to be continuing, he said. Paramount has held talks with the Saudi Arabian government to establish